Thank you for joining us today. Our session today is Calm and Confident, Mastering Test Taking. My name is Christine Torres, and I am the Assistant Director for the Pioneer Center for Student Excellence. Throughout this presentation, I am going to be asking for some questions or some feedback. Please feel free to use the chat button. You can use the chat button to respond to everyone, or you can respond to me individually. But engagement is also another part of that learning process, so please take advantage of that. If you don't want to ask anything to the group, just send me a private message through chat. You can also use your emojis, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So what we're going to be covering today is our agenda: understanding test anxiety, effective test preparation, and test-taking strategies. Test anxiety. I think it's really important that I start off with test anxiety. What is test anxiety? Test anxiety is a combination of physical symptoms and emotional reactions that interfere with your ability to perform well on tests. So test anxiety can present itself in different ways. It can and it can also be situational. So it doesn't mean that it happens at every class. It happens at different events, different times in your life. But what we're going to focus on is some symptoms, just so that you're aware of that. Some people may experience shortness of breath, feeling your heart beating faster, feeling stressed. You may even find it difficult to concentrate. So you can also start thinking negatively and then start comparing yourself to others. This might be if you're in a test environment and you see someone leave, and then you start to question, well, why am I not done? Why am I still here? Why is it taking me so long? What I need you to do is stop that way of thinking. We have to turn those thoughts around so that we are now thinking positively. We don't know why they left early, but we're not going to let that interfere with our performance on this exam. So recognizing and addressing these symptoms is critical. And if we don't acknowledge them and we're not aware of what our body goes through when we're feeling anxious, then it can impact our overall performance in a test and in a class. So what I want you to do is to practice self-compassion and positive self-talk. And then don't forget that there is help. TWU has a couple of resources, and I'm going to talk about two today. And we do value your health and well-being. So one of those is our TWU mental health resources. This is a listing of, and you'll receive the direct link in the chat. But our student resources include counseling. We have teletherapy, and we have staff that are able to support you in these areas. We have a crisis hotline. We have a peer support group, and we have some other information for you. So please take some time to go through this if this is something that you are looking for. We also have disability services for students. So anxiety can be a form of a disability that you can get accommodations for. You just have to go through the right channels to be able to get those accommodations. It does take time, and it's not retroactive. So you can't fail an exam and say, because it was because of my anxiety, and then try to retake the exam. So you have to be proactive, and you have to apply for services. So this is our disability services website. You do have to go through a process of application, meeting with one of the representatives, and then submitting documentation as well. So that's also another resource for you. So test anxiety is a common experience for most students, but we're not going to let that overpower where we are today and where we are going to be moving forward. It's important to remember that while test anxiety is common, it doesn't have to control your performance. So now that we've discussed test anxiety, let's explore some effective study strategies to reduce the impact and help you feel calm and confident. We're going to look at 3 areas. We're going to look at how to be prepared, how to study effectively, and how to engage in self-care. Being prepared. Being adequately prepared for an exam impacts your performance and ensures that you can effectively demonstrate your understanding of the material. Insufficient preparation significantly increases your chances for not passing your exams. When you fail to adequately prepare, you jeopardize your success and increase the likelihood of experiencing anxiety during an exam. This is why it's important for you to plan ahead of time and to be able to prepare so that you meet the goals that you have set for yourself. So let's dive into a couple of ways that we can do that. One is by creating a study guide. By creating a study guide, you are giving yourself an outline of what you need to focus on. So study guides can help organize information, helps you identify key concepts, promotes active learning, and it enhances time management, ultimately to improve your test scores, or your performance on your exams. It serves as a condensed resource that helps students effectively prepare for exams by reinforcing comprehension and then aiding to an efficient study process. So what if you don't have a study guide? Well, not all of us are able to have a course where a study guide is provided to us. This is why it is important for you to take the initiative to create your own study guide. You can look at what's going to be outlined in that chapter. You can look at what the professor has indicated in the course syllabus. You can look at course objectives. You can look at various different things that you need to guide you in this plan of preparing for the exam and to be able to study. So let's go ahead and emphasize here that it is important to externalize your actions. So you know that you have to study 5 chapters in one course, but what's in those chapters? What are the topics that you know? What are the concepts that you're struggling with? Giving yourself an outline and creating a study guide is going to help you know where you need to focus your time and where you need to prioritize your time, okay? Chunking. Chunking is a process of breaking down your activities into manageable pieces. By breaking down larger amounts of material into smaller chunks, more manageable chunks, you can process and retain information a lot easier. It's just an effective study habit to have. So if you do have 5 chapters to study, it seems like, and it is a lot, but if you break it down and say, I'm going to do chapter 1, week 1, chapter 2, week 2, so on and so forth, then you don't feel like you have to do 5 chapters in 1 week. This is why chunking is so important. But it also goes into a deeper level, because what you can find is that if you're studying chapter 1, well, then let's create an outline for what's included in chapter 1 so that we can form a study guide. This is going to boost your confidence. Once you're able to check things off to say you've mastered them, then you know you have to prioritize your time. And not just because you've created an outline with 5 chapters and 10 sub-chapters and, you know, it keeps going and going, that does not mean that you need to spend your time reviewing everything. Spend your time reviewing the content that is going to be most important to you or that you feel that you're struggling in understanding the most. The third one is backwards planning. Backwards planning involves setting clear goals, managing your time effectively, prioritizing your tasks, and this helps to reduce anxiety. By working backwards from an exam date, you can create a structured study plan that will ensure that you cover all the material that you need to cover, and it helps boost your confidence. How does backwards planning work? For backwards planning, what you're going to do is you're going to identify a due date. If your exam is let's just say the 15th of next month, then set your due date for 2 days before. That way you know that your studying is going to be completed 2 days before. That's just in case something comes up. It gives us time. Then you're going to brainstorm the steps needed. I need to create a study guide. I need to reread chapter 4 because maybe you didn't understand it. I need to allow time to go to the tutoring center. I need to allow time to meet with my professor. Things of this nature are going to be what's included in your brainstorming process. And then what you're going to do is you're going to write those down and you're going to use a calendar and you're going to plan. Now, this is very simple and easy if you're just enrolled in one class. If you're enrolled in 2, 3, 4 classes, and you have other responsibilities outside of school, then backwards planning might look like it's impossible to do, but it is possible. You just have to plan ahead of time. And you have to make the time to say, I am going to brainstorm everything I need to do. I am going to give myself deadlines, and I'm going to meet these deadlines by chunking, by breaking things up and sprinkling it throughout your week, throughout your month. And this is a great time to start planning for what you need to plan to study your finals. We're going to look at now a couple of effective study strategies that you need to also consider when we are preparing for exams. You need to set clear goals for yourself. By setting clear goals for yourself, you are providing yourself with clarity and a sense of purpose. If you just say, review PowerPoint, that doesn't really give you clarity. If you can say, read and understand slides 1 through 15, then this is more specific for you and it's going to be easier to focus, and you've already chunked it. So it's not so much. You don't have to read all 50 slides in one sitting. We're just going to do 15. And then we're going to do another 15. And then we might have a little bit more time and then do another, let's say 20. Okay? So that's chunking and that's setting clear goals. You want to make sure that you minimize distractions. Eliminating distractions can help create an environment that is conducive to focus and helps with that learning process. If we are on our computer and we get notifications, we get emails, we get our phone ringing, those are all distractions. So for me, like in today's presentation, my phone is on Do Not Disturb. My messaging system, we use Teams, is on Do Not Disturb, and my email is physically closed. So I'm not getting these interruptions during a call so that I can focus on what I need to focus on. Now, the dings you hear is just the people coming in into the chat and to the group. So I'm just letting those people in, but that should be my only form of distraction. So create an area that's going to be limited distraction. We can't always control when and where we have time to study, but plan accordingly. If you know that you have to study during your lunch break, maybe plan some busy work. This is where I'm going to create my 9 minutes. This is where I'm going to create a couple of flashcards. This is where I'm going to create my outline. So we're not physically engaged in retention and understanding, but we're in the process of active learning. We're writing, we're doing, we're creating, and that's okay. So we only have 45 minutes or 30 minutes to do this, and that's okay. So strategize what you're going to do and when. Create a structured approach. You may want to spend some time, organizing what you're going to study. If your notes are not legible, you might take a little bit of time to summarize, not rewrite the whole thing, but maybe summarize some parts or pull out some parts and rewrite those sections that you need to rewrite. So we're not doing the whole document just for the sense of rewriting our notes. We're only going to be focusing in on what we need to rewrite because this is going to be on our exam. So it doesn't mean that we're sitting there and we are rewriting or retyping an hour and a half worth of lecture. Just do the parts that you need. Make sure that you are optimizing your time and using it well. You also want to be mindful that you do not get stuck in the mindset of, I've always done it this way, right? Always done it this way can look different for different people. Maybe you've always created flashcards for all of your classes, and that's the way you retain information. It's important that you remain flexible and know when to adjust and then when to pull back. So if you have 5 classes and you're creating flashcards for each class, that's very time consuming. Pick what you're going to create flashcards for and then find an effective process for creating those flashcards so that they're in a format that is useful to you, retaining and understanding and developing a deeper sense of knowledge rather than just memorization. Engage in active learning. Active learning is a process that happens over time. When we review information for the first time, it is in our working memory. You have to review it multiple times for it to then pass on to long-term memory, and that is where the problem solving occurs. Problem solving occurs when information has been successfully stored in our long-term memory. How do we do that? We do that by actively engaging with material. This might be using a dry erase board, using a sheet of paper, reevaluating the points that you need to go back and hit on, interacting with classmates, going to the tutoring center, making an appointment to meet with your faculty member to get clarification, doing your own research on the side. If you are reading and there's a word that you do not know and you skip over that word, you're going to miss the whole concept. Identify those words in the beginning so then you can have a successful understanding of the material. So that's engaging in the active learning process. Effective review techniques incorporate spaced repetition, active recall, and summarization. Sometimes reading is just not enough. Sometimes reviewing is just not enough. If you can put things into your own words, you're more likely to remember it. So if you've read and then you've summarized, this is two opportunities you have had to be interacting with the material. And then also you have more of a chance to feel comfortable with it. You now understand it a little better. We are working towards problem solving, not just memorization, because it takes more than 1, 2, 3 times to review material until it actually sinks in. And then finally, stay motivated. It is important to understand that motivation fuels consistent effort and progress towards your goals. There is going to always be that one class, that one instructor, that one time of day, that one location that decreases your motivation. And that's okay. That's okay. Accept it. But how are we going to stay interested in this subject, in this instructor, in this classroom, in this learning environment? What are you going to do to make it more interesting? If your motivation and interest are low, then the chances of you retaining the information are also low. There are going to be some subjects that are going to be a little bit more in depth, that go a little bit more in depth and that require a lot more of your attention. So then we need to know that we need to stay motivated. If you've had a long day at work and then you come home and study, this is another important reason why we need to chunk. Because if we just do a little bit today and then tomorrow we review and then do a little bit more, and then the third day we review what we learned on Monday, we review what we learned on Tuesday, and now we're reading again on Wednesday, that's spaced repetition. And if you also throw in creating summaries, now it's in your own words. Because a lot has gone on since you studied on Monday and since you studied on Tuesday. But if after you studied, you create a summary or you write bullet points or you write the things that are most important to you in that reading, then that is a way of you being engaged with the material. What I want to do now is want to take a few minutes to hear from you. Please feel free to use the chat or take yourself off of mic, take your mic off of mute, and I want to hear from you. What are some ways or some techniques that you use to prepare for studying? I use my planner. Good. I would go through all the material and create a study guide. Good. Same. So I also want to reiterate that this is the important part. What you share with others on this call helps them to get a better understanding because they can't get all this information from me. So they want to hear from their peers. I watch videos on YouTube about the material. Yes, that's a visual learner. Make your own questions. Very good technique. If you make your own questions, you're preparing yourself for that test environment. Great. Anybody else have any tips they'd like to use or share? I also use Quizlets. Quizlets is a website where you can do flashcards. Great. I'll throw one more out there, using mnemonics. Mnemonics are a way for you to retain information, especially if it's something that's sequenced, so that you don't have to remember all of the steps. You just search mnemonics, and you'll go Google, you'll search mnemonic and whatever you're studying, and something will come up. So that's another study method. Great. So let's look at engaging in self-care. Why is it important to engage in self-care? Because you deserve it. And I need you to believe that. If I believe that, I want you to believe that. Self-care is very important, and it doesn't take a lot, and it doesn't have to be expensive. So there are a lot of things that we can do. We can read a book, we can watch a movie, we can go for a walk, we can practice deep breathing, just slowing down and taking a deep breath, taking a break, getting some fresh air. You can meditate, you can do prayer, whatever works for you. You can dance. Have you heard the saying, like, dance like nobody's watching? Do it. Like, it really does help with your motivation. And you can journal. And you can journal things like things that you are grateful for. Just a couple of ideas that you can use that are very cheap to engage in self-care. Does anybody have any self-care ideas they'd like to share? Working out, exercising, yes. Doing my nails. I do hot yoga. I've heard hot yoga. Yes, all forms of meditation. The yoga. Anybody else? Anything else? How about something you'd like to do? Pep talks. Pep talks help. Listening to podcasts, maybe even something that interests you if you don't have time to stop and read. Just sitting there, relaxing, listening to a pep talk, listening to a webinar, listening to something in the field. Cooking, I love cooking. Yes, cooking, baking. I like to spend time with friends. Great. Yes, these are things that we need to do, and we need to make the time to do this so that we have this balance. All right. Let's talk about some test-taking strategies. Let's first talk about managing test anxiety. If you're up till midnight studying for an exam, you are increasing your anxiety. If you leave the house late, you're increasing your anxiety. If you don't eat breakfast, if you are that person that is outside the classroom ready to take the exam, asking somebody, hey, did you study? You are anxious, and your anxiousness is being felt by others. So we want to make sure that we're planning accordingly. If you remember in grade school, when we would have standardized tests, they would tell us, make sure you have your breakfast, make sure you go to bed, make sure that you plan accordingly, that you wear comfortable clothes. Think about those things. What is in your comfort level that is going to help increase your confidence and decrease any anxieties that you may have? You want to practice breathing techniques, maybe doing that yoga, going for exercise the night before, or the day before, or that day of, just depending on when your test is. So we want to be able to identify what any symptoms might be. And then we also want to make sure that we are aware of how to manage that in a test environment. Another test-taking strategy that I want to talk about is using process of elimination. By using process of elimination, you narrow down options, and you are hopefully getting to the correct answer by eliminating the incorrect answers. This increases the possibility of selecting the correct answer. This is why it's important not just to memorize, but to understand what you're studying and why you're studying it. Remember, you are studying to solve problems, not just to rinse and repeat. We're not just giving a word and a definition. We're applying critical thinking. The next thing you want to do is you want to read each question and answer carefully. Now, This is where we need to practice the breathing techniques. We need to make sure that we're looking at key words, key details. We want to make sure that we are not being misled in any way. This is why it's important. One of the strategies that was recommended was practice test questions. If you practice test questions in a test environment, then we are more likely to be comfortable once we get into a test environment. Look for qualifiers. Qualifiers are things like always, never, only, and all with the some. So I can almost promise and guarantee you, your teachers are not trying to trick you. They're not. This is the way testing is formatted so that they can get a clear assessment of your understanding of the material and your application of the material, okay? So when you see words like this, when you see qualifiers, you need to pay attention because these qualifiers can help you determine if a statement is correct or incorrect. And also, if you do not read a question correctly, and if you do not take your time in reading and understanding the question, the answer might be the opposite. So if they ask you, select the following that apply to the situation, but then they can also ask, select what does not apply to this situation. So that not is a qualifier. So you need to pay attention to keywords like that in your questions and in your answers, because ultimately understanding the question is going to help you respond and identify the answer along with elimination. Don't second guess yourself excessively. We're all going to have the tendency to second guess ourselves and to wonder, what if it's this, what if it's that? But the more that you practice, the more comfortable you become, and then you will second guess yourself less. Only go back and change answers if you have new information or if you thought of something new that then validates why you selected that answer. And then finally, practice. Practice, practice, practice. Familiarize yourself with the format and types of questions that you're going to encounter on the test day. Take practice exams, create test questions that you can work through. This is also going to help build your confidence and help you stay calm during the exam because you've already been exposed to this. If you're in a class and you've only taken 2 exams and your second one is going to be your final, it's going to feel uncomfortable. You haven't done it before. So study, practice, review, and if you need to, do it in a timed environment. You can have questions like multiple choice, true, false, placing things in order, filling in the blank, short answers, essay questions. Just be sure that you are prepared to read the instructions, understand your question clearly, and then be able to produce the answer. What we're going to do is, I'm only using this question as an example. I don't need any answers. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at an example of what it's like to go through a select all that applies and kind of go through using some of these strategies to help us get to and identify the correct answer. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to carefully read the question. This question is asking us to look for common symptoms of anxiety. I'm going to read the test question. Which of the following are common symptoms of anxiety? Now, by reading this, I know that there's going to be some right answers and there's going to be some wrong answers. So if I do not understand and have a thorough knowledge of anxiety, I can select the wrong answer. Okay, so we have our answers here. The next step is that we have our selections here. The next step we're going to do is we're going to go through the process of elimination. A lot of times you cannot write on your exams, and probably most of the times you cannot write on your exams, but mentally you would cross out the questions that do not seem like they would be a good fit for this response, based on your knowledge, based on the information that you've learned, based on videos that you've seen, test questions that you've used to prepare. So using the process of elimination, we have eliminated 2 possible choices. That is the loss of appetite and muscle tension. So answering a question like this can be challenging because some of these symptoms may also occur in other medical conditions. So if you are studying anxiety, hyperthyroidism, panic disorders, and maybe chemical with like withdrawals from medications and heart conditions, you have overlapping symptoms. So only understanding a couple of symptoms of anxiety and not thoroughly understanding it enough to be able to answer questions like this can be where it gets difficult to answer test questions. This is why it's so important, not only just to memorize what you are studying, but understand why it's happening. So if one of the topics in your chapter PowerPoint was anxiety, we would need to know what are the symptoms, what are the medications, what are the treatments, what are the side effects, what is the definition, when does it happen, how you manage it. We need to know these things because our questions can be fueled from any of these areas. So this is why it's important not just to memorize, but have a thorough understanding and a deep understanding of the material. Your purpose for learning this is to problem solve effectively. So going past just a definition, we need to be prepared to problem solve. Why? Well, identifying anxiety symptoms can lead to appropriate interventions, support, referrals. So if you are in the field of being a doctor, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a caseworker, any of these things that have to do or will come across anxiety, this is why it's important to understand more than just a definition. So what I want you to do is I want you to assume the role of your discipline, okay? If you are in school to be a nurse, then I want you to look at this question as, why is it important for a nurse to know the symptoms of anxiety? Could it be the patients I see? Could it be the medication my patients are seeing? If you're a psychologist, if you're studying to be a social worker, why is it important to know that somebody who comes in your office has an increased heart rate and is sweating? How do you know what's going on with them and how to be able to handle that situation? So visualize yourself in that profession. You're no longer students, right? Physically, you're students. Mentally, I want you to visualize yourself as that person. So in the chat, I want you to put, I am a. So if you're studying to be a teacher, a scientist, I want you to see, I am a. And then whatever it is that you are going to be, what are you going to start visualizing yourself as? I am a nurse. I am a nurse. I am an OBGYN. I am a occupational therapist. Yes, yes, you are. I am an oncology nurse. We got specific. I love it. I am a lawyer. Yes, you are. Yes, so you have to start thinking like a lawyer. Think like one, okay? So what I'm going to do is I am going to play a short video. It's like 2 minutes long, but it is a scene from a movie called Man on Fire, featuring Denzel Washington and Dakota Fanning. So let's take a few minutes to watch this video. And if you can't hear it, somebody please let me know.
Concentrating. Eyes are closed. What happened?
I flinched.
You flinched. The gunshot holds no fear. Say it.
The gunshot holds no fear.
The gunshot holds no fear. Say it.
The gunshot holds no fear.
Louder.
The gunshot holds no fear.
Louder.
The gunshot holds no fear.
That's good. You welcome the sound. In fact, it's the sound that sets you free. You are a prisoner on this block until that sound sets you free. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you set?
Uh-huh.
Hey! Stop, 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 stop. Come back, come back, come back. Bang! Stop, 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 stop. Stop, come here. Hurry up, hurry up. Sit. Bang! Bang! flinch when you hear the gunshot. Understand? You listen for the sound. You don't anticipate. Concentrate on the sound. You understand me? You're gaining on you. Go, 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 go. Stop, stop. Come on, get out. Let's go again. Let's go again. Go, go, go. Go, 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 go. Bravo! Bravo! Muy bien! Bravo! 10.99.
Woo! I'm tough, Creasy.
Yeah? No such thing as tough. There's trained, and then there's untrained. And now, which are you?
Trained.
Trained. Okay, let's go again.
All right. In this video, there's a couple of things going on. There's practice, there's practice, there's practice. There's positive self-talk at the end. She felt a level of confidence, right? She also had a resource to help her through this process. And she also learned that the gunshot holds no fear. This is something I want you to take back with you when you go into that test environment. The time on that test, it doesn't define you. It holds no fear to you. This is why it's important to plan early, to do these test questions, and do them in a test environment. It's gonna feel uncomfortable. It is. But guess what? Let it feel uncomfortable until you get to a level of comfort. And then you're maximizing your potential. Okay? So practice in a timed environment, practice in small chunks, practice over and over until you feel that level of confidence. And when you feel that level of confidence, when you have mastered something, I want you to celebrate. Celebrate, dance, cheer, whatever it is. I want you to celebrate because this is boosting your level of confidence going into that exam, and you'll be less likely to second guess yourself. Okay? So another technique that you can grasp from me. Let's go to the next slide. Our quote here is, you're suffering from self-doubt while others are intimidated by your full potential. Each and every one of you have the potential to become a lawyer, to become a nurse, to become an oncologist, to become a physical therapist, to become an administrator, right? We set our own limits, and we are irrelevant to our goals. We didn't plan for this. We didn't plan to set ourselves back or to hold ourselves back, but we can plan to move forward. So remember that doubts are just illusions blocking the pathway to your success. You hold the key to unlocking your success. I hope that these strategies, these test preparation tips that I've provided today, and some of the stuff that you've shared through the chat, I hope that these are some ways that can help give you the confidence and to be able to feel calm going into a test environment. Please do not let prior test performance impact how you feel moving into a test. That was then. We're not going to let that define us. That happened then. I didn't have these skills and strategies that I have now. This is what I need to do to move forward. And I'm going to do my best. At the end of the day, doing your best is what counts. Each and every one of you will have an opportunity to be in front of a client, a patient, and a customer. And you're going to be able to provide them that same amount of motivation and strength that it took for you to successfully unblock these things that were keeping you from succeeding and reaching your full potential. With that, we do conclude our presentation. I am going to take a few minutes to drop something in the chat. It is our survey. If you could please fill out the survey and let me know how this presentation went. Any feedback, that is all reviewed. There's a QR code and then the chat, the button, the chat has the actual link if that's something you want to participate in. I greatly appreciate it. And then now I want to take some time to answer questions. So if there was anything that was not covered, anything that you're still stuck on that you quite haven't processed, I'd be more than happy to review anything or talk about anything new. So if you have a question, please take your mic off, please drop it in the chat, and let's get started with Q&A. You can send me a private chat if you don't want to send it to the group. That's perfectly fine. Any questions? I'll give it a few more seconds for some questions. 2 more minutes. This session is common confident. I'm sorry, it's common confident. You can just put common confident if you're doing the survey. Anybody have any questions? Anything they'd like to review? Anything they were expecting that was not covered today? We do have some time to review that material. I do thank everyone for your time today. I'm going to take off the recording, so give me a second.